introduction of our guest today, who I am so incredibly proud to have here. I want to introduce Marci Marie to you the way hundreds of thousands have been introduced to her, and that's through some of her social media videos, which for me were happening, no surprise, on TikTok. And I believe a couple of years ago, the first videos that I began seeing of Marci Marie were actually cooking videos, but a different kind of cooking videos.
Hey y'all, let's make some prison scallop potatoes. Okay y'all, I'm gonna use jalapeno cheese, salt and pepper, cheese puffs, and for our potatoes, ruffled potato chips, the cheap brand, right? Okay, I put our cheese sauce mixture to the side, and now we have to take some potato chips, and this is a bowl of water, y'all. We're just gonna let the chips soak up the water. We're just gonna hydrate the potatoes, right? Okay, y'all, it took about 5 minutes for our potatoes to hydrate, so I'm just gonna mix the cheese sauce mixture that we had prepared with it. I'm just gonna mix all the potatoes up with that cheese mixture. Okay, so our scalloped potatoes are in the chip bag. I tied it off with a hair tie. If I were still incarcerated, I would put these in my hot pot and cook them for about 10 minutes. But today I'm just gonna use the stove top and put them in some hot water, and we'll see how they turn out. Okay, I think our potatoes are done.
Okay, so it was videos like that first introduced me to this amazing woman, and of course I was like, wait, what? Huh? And then, because of the magic of the algorithm, because I was liking and engaging, then I started seeing more serious videos.
Hey y'all, let's make some. Hi y'all, I wanted to respond to this comment real quick. I get this a lot. Asking why I was in prison. So I was charged with theft over $200,000 in 2010. I'm guilty of that charge. What happened is at my job, they were doing some shenanigans with the finances, and I actively participated in that. Then I took it a step further and accumulated funds illegally that directly benefited myself. So it was stupid, absolutely the most idiotic thing I've ever done. But I'm home now after serving a little over 10 years. I've been home almost a year, and I'm out here trying to make every day and every moment special. It's not easy. Trying to survive, doing things the right way, and love on my family. So thanks for asking. Great question.
Marci Marie Simmons is the Community Outreach Coordinator for Lioness Justice Impacted Women's Alliance. As a social media influencer and content creator, she has over 280,000 followers on TikTok and is co-host of On the Rec-Yard Women's Prison Podcast. Marci uses her voice as a formerly incarcerated woman to educate others about the unique experience of surviving 10 years in a Texas prison. Known for her joyful disposition, which y'all just saw, and openness, she focuses on healing with her family and community as she advocates for those most affected by the criminal justice system. And last spring, as we know, not this spring, but last spring, the Texas Ledge was in session. I know you were there a lot. I was there a lot, and somehow we were just always kind of missing each other. Marci continues chasing her dreams while never forgetting about the women that she left behind prison gates. She also serves on the board for the Second Chancer Foundation. Would you please welcome with me Marci Marie? Make sure this is working. And Mike, is that working okay? Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I will tell y'all, what happened was I reached out to this rock star because after watching your videos, I was like, okay, there is so much that we don't know and so much that we need to know, and once you know, you have to do something. So I reached out to Marci to say, can you give me some more information? And we had been kind of going back and forth, and then on a total whim, I said, there's no chance you could actually come, and you didn't even hesitate. You were like, absolutely, I'll be there. So let me jump right into this. I called this service What We Don't Want to Know because there's a folk singer who spent time in a men's penitentiary, Brian Bowers, and he has this very searing song. It's called Prison Song. I recommend it, but also don't listen to it in front of your children because it's very real. And the refrain of it is, and the world outside don't want to know. You're on social media, and you gently, for the people who might otherwise avoid it, I just think you're so brilliant because you just kind of gently draw people into this. Cooking videos, how did that come about?
So just the same way that food out here brings community together and brings people together, food inside of prison walls does the same thing. Food is a very important part of our day-to-day life. It's how we socialize in there. It's how we show affection and love for one another. If it's my friend that lives in another dorm and I want to show her some love, I'm going to cook something up and smuggle it across the prison unit to get it to her. So food's really important.
Yeah, it seems like you are drawing in people who might not go searching for videos about the prison system, especially in Texas. In your social media and your public work, do you find that there is a lot that people have no idea about?
I was really surprised when I came home from prison, the amount of, or the lack of the amount of knowledge that general society has about what happens inside. During my incarceration, it felt like people didn't care. And then I came home and started talking about it, and it's just that so many people didn't know.
Yeah. When you went in, what did you think you were going to experience, and were there surprises?
Right. Great question, Reverend Joe. I was, and may I say that I follow you on TikTok, and I have followed you for a while. I was really intrigued with the UU church. I have a friend that actually tried to get a UU service started inside of the prison walls unsuccessfully. Maybe a mission we need to re-explore. So now I forgot the question.
Oh, so what did you, I think that most of us, if we have not been incarcerated, we're thinking of, Orange is the New Black or something. We don't have that much information. Did you have expectations, and was the reality different?
Absolutely. I grew up with fairly progressive, my parents were self-proclaimed hippies, but they still raised me in a white suburban bubble. And I still had this preconceived notion that prison held bad people, that's what they're built for, to hold bad people. So even as a 30-year-old woman going into prison, I believed that I was going into an institution that was made to hold bad people. I was made to believe that the people inside I needed to fear. I was immediately taken back by the humanity and the sisterhood that I found inside of those walls. Those ladies that I was incarcerated with, and I was incarcerated with trans people as well, so I should say the people that I was incarcerated with, their stories that led to their incarceration, it opened my eyes to so much work that needed to be done out here in our communities, and ways that we can give back to our communities and help some of these folks way early on, childhood and teenage years, that would not end them up. They wouldn't end up in prison, right? And so their stories changed. I learned that the fear really was from administration and staff. That's where my fear lied. By maybe the second year in prison, I knew immediately that was my family in there.
Wow. Yeah, and you still talk about the ladies, and one of the things that's been very interesting to me in your videos is that there was also joy in this because of the people you were serving with. Can you say a little bit about that?
Absolutely. You know, the book that we read, thank you for that. That was a lovely reading. When I got incarcerated, I had 5 children, so that book hit my heart for sure. There's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of guilt, and any mental illness that you might have had going in, that's exacerbated. So there's a lot of that. But still, in the midst of all of that, and all of that oppression, and all of those harsh conditions, humanity and the people inside, we had joy. You know, when we were making scalloped potatoes and prison pizza, and we were getting together for someone's birthday, those were moments of joy, and those are moments that I miss from my incarceration.
So something that struck me, I think it was when we were singing the first hymn, the word justice was in it. I remember like hearing people with less privilege than me say, yeah, when I hear justice, I hear just us. Like, what does the word justice mean to you?
Justice means to me that we need to fight back and take that word back. Justice to me, I do feel a sense of oppression when I hear that word. I definitely, you know, I call it our unjust system, our criminal unjust system. The way that it's made to keep oppressed populations, black and brown people, LGBTQ community down and in a cycle of oppression. I loved to see that you guys had a voting table set up. This is incredible, right? Because that's one of the things that we're working towards, and one of our priorities is to get our family members coming out of the prison system, and once they get off of paper, they can vote. And so let's teach them how that looks. What does that look like? So many folks got locked up as teenagers, and they don't have any idea what does civic engagement look like, you know? And so I think that justice is a word that we need to take back. Democracy is a word that we need to take back. That this is our place, right? We own those words, and we need to stop letting people tell us what that looks like.
Here, here. So getting into some of the heavy stuff, you are clear in all of your videos, I did wrong, this was stupid, and as we talk about in this congregation a lot, 2 things can be true at the same time. It is very clear hearing your story that you did not have good legal counsel, and that the punishment you were given was very shocking even to people who you know, knew about this. What was the original plea deal that you were offered?
The first plea deal that my lawyer brought to me, I was in the holding cell at the courthouse, which reminds you of a dungeon. It's underground where I was at, and it's just a dank, dark little room, and you're taken there in handcuffs, and you actually are left in handcuffs in the cell. And I remember like pacing back and forth, wondering what was going to happen, and my lawyer comes to the door, and I'm like, run to the door immediately, and they don't even open it. He talks through the crack to me, and he says, okay, we've got an offer. And I'm thinking, maybe probation. It could be probation, maybe with restitution. You know, that seems like that might heal the community. I pay back the money. I do community service, you know, and this is what I'm thinking. And he says, okay, and he slides the papers under the door, and he says, they're offering 40 years.
And what was the amount of the theft?
$365,000 was the total amount.
What did your sentence wind up being?
20 years.
For that?
Yeah, I got sentenced to 20 years. When it came down to it, Reverend Joe, I didn't take it to trial. I couldn't afford to pay for a trial attorney. And when that final offer, when I finally signed, I was getting, my husband at the time had 2 babies in diapers. I had 3 middle schoolers, and they were threatening to arrest him, even though he didn't know. He didn't know, y'all. I was keeping that from him, and I just couldn't picture how that would look, him in handcuffs and my kids, and I just signed. Yeah, I signed for that time.
Wow. During your incarceration, you were put in solitary confinement. Okay, I know the story. Can you briefly tell why you were put in solitary confinement?
Solitary confinement's actually overused in prisons. We know long-term solitary confinement, just very quickly, Texas houses people in solitary confinement for 3 years or more, the number that they house for 3 years or more. If you took every other state plus the federal government and combined all of those people, Texas houses more than all of those in long-term solitary confinement. It is also overused in short-term solitary confinement for disciplinary purposes, and so that's how I went. The first time that I went to solitary confinement, it was during mail call, and a young lady that lived, an older lady that lived 2 cubicles down from me. It's like cubicle style housing. If you can picture an office cubicle, but the walls are about halfway, and then there's a metal bunk. So I can touch my friend here, and I can touch her here, but we do have this metal wall between us. So she lives 2 down, and she's in her floor with her mail, and she's crying. And I kind of take one step into her housing area. I hug her shoulders, kiss the top of her head. I didn't interrupt her. You know, I was just trying to let her know she's not alone. I'm here, and I go back to my cubicle. Minutes later, we hear keys, and we look up, and there's just 5, 6, 7 officers coming in, all of these keys, and we're like, what happened? What did we miss? Like, I thought, man, did someone fight? And I didn't see it, you know, and we're watching, and my cubicle was upstairs, and they march upstairs, and we're all looking like, who are they going for? And they come to my cubicle. They had seen that on camera. So I broke a rule by, number 1, I took one step into her cubicle, so I was out of place, and number 2, I hugged her and kissed the top of her head, which that's a sex case. I got in trouble for a sex case, and so they handcuffed me and escorted me to solitary confinement over that.
And how long were you in solitary confinement?
That time I was there for 34 days. Yeah, it was pretty terrible. What that means for a mother is I'm not able to call. So the last time I talked to my kids, when I say, okay, I'm going to call again this weekend, that promise was fallen on. You know, it was broken. And then that time I also had a visit. My grandmother came. Do we have time for me to kind of go through that? So I'm in solitary confinement. When you get there, they take your undergarments and they put you in a gown. And it's similar to a hospital gown, but it closes in the back. It's just kind of this big baggy thing. You can see the big armholes. You're not covered. And then they come to my door and they say, hey, Simmons, get ready for a visit. We'll get ready. I don't have any of my property with me. I haven't brushed my teeth in days. I have not deodorant. I haven't been to a shower in days. You know, I don't have a comb. And so I'm like trying to make myself okay. And they bring me this jumper that's a size 4X, and it's falling down. I have no underclothes on, and I'm like, they handcuff you and escort you. I'll just kind of fast forward because there's some other humiliating things. They strip search you, and that I get to visit. And when you're in solitary confinement, your visitation is in this tiny box, and your visitor is on the other side. So there's a glass, and I'm escorted by 2 officers, and I look through the little window, and I'm praying that my kids aren't there to see me like this. And I see my grandmother, who was 78 at that time, my sweet grandmother that came at least once a month throughout my entire incarceration. And they slide open the door, and I step inside. They close the door behind me, and I have to get down on my knees and put my handcuffed hands through this slot. And I'm looking at my grandmother, and you know, her sweet face is looking at me, and I can tell she's just worried, and she's tearing up, and I'm trying to like smile at her, you know, but inside I'm broken, you know, but I'm trying to look strong and tough for her. And when they took the cuffs off and I sat down, it's like you may have seen on TV where they have the phones, and so I'm on one phone and she's on the other phone on the other side of the glass, and she says, "Baby, what did you do?" You know, she just couldn't imagine why I would be escorted by 2 correction staff and handcuffed. You know, and I said, "Grandmother, I broke a rule. You know, I broke a rule. I'm okay. I'm all right. Everything's okay. I'm not going to be in here long." But I wasn't okay. I was far from okay.
You gave someone a little bit of sympathy. It seems like the whole system, rather than rehabilitation, it seems like its purpose is to strip as much humanity from you as possible.
Oh, very much so. I was on a unit that housed disabled persons, and maybe that's not the right term, and so someone correct me if I need to be using a better term. So we had a lot of elderly population. We had a lot of ladies on walkers or in wheelchairs. We weren't allowed to hold the door open for them. That was a disciplinary infraction. We weren't allowed to help push a wheelchair if we saw them struggling to get back from the chow hall when it's 105 degrees outside. And no, we weren't. I'm embarrassed to say how calloused I got to that. By my 10th year, I was so used to not that I was able just to even look past it, like that person didn't even exist.
And I'm going to want to continue talking with you, so I'm going to look over at Daria and Curtis. Are you okay with me dropping some of the music? Okay, so we can continue talking. What are things that people are most surprised to learn about when they watch your videos?
I think a lot of Texans are surprised to learn that most prisons in Texas are not air conditioned.
I was shocked. I was completely shocked. I did not know that.
The prisons are made out of concrete and brick and elements that hold heat. So in the middle of August, it is cooler for us outside than it is inside of our cell. Our dorms have showers also, so it's like this humid, not quite a steam room, but that thick air that's hard to take a deep breath. We see a lot of heat-induced seizures, a lot of deaths. Anybody that has any heart conditions or any prior medical issues, that heat, those summers are very dangerous for them.
Right. Well, let me jump into, what do you think are the most important issues with the Texas justice system that people need to be aware of?
First thing that comes to mind is our housing conditions. We're not housing people in humane ways. The fact is that most people incarcerated come back to our communities. How we treat them and what happens inside of prison walls matter to us. Who do we want working next to us and living next to us and going to the grocery store with us? This is important. People are housed and treated like subhumans, like animals. Maybe worse than animals. If an animal shelter was housing dogs in 130-degree cells, they would be, yeah.
Yeah, so you had a video where you talked about how, I believe it was the pigs or the hogs had air conditioning, but the inmates did not.
Right, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice raises pigs, and one of my jobs was shoveling pig droppings while I was there, and those buildings where the pigs lived in have climate control. It's really disheartening to go back from working that kind of manual labor in the middle of summer and walking into a dorm that you can't hardly breathe in. It knocks down any kind of confidence or self-esteem or self-worth that you had about yourself.
Speaking of farming, we still have legalized slavery, and you worked on a plantation.
Absolutely. A lot of Texas prisons were built right on top of plantations, and that could be a whole nother conversation, right? And absolutely, we have field squad inside of Texas prisons, which has been exposed as losing money. They are not making money or even breaking even. It's just this culture of oppression that Texas can't seem to let go of. What that looks like are, instead of slaves that you would see in an old plantation movie, working the fields, working the crops, now we have incarcerated individuals. And it's that same kind of work. It's very similar. It looks just like those movies. We had armed officers on horseback shouting at us. We weren't chained together, but we had weapons pointed at us, and very real threat if something had happened.
I've heard some of your descriptions, like you're not even allowed to stand up and stretch your back.
Right. When you're pulling weeds, you're put on the end of the row, and you have to stand up and then just bend at the waist, and you pull. And this is how I'll say the conditions, the restroom, feminine hygiene, changing feminine hygiene items in the middle of the field. These things are the reality for incarcerated women every day that are working out there. No water, no sunscreen, no hat. You know, it's very hard, laborious work. And yeah, when we're pulling weeds, we're not allowed to stand up and stretch. And can I just add, in the midst of all of that, those ladies that I worked that field squad with, we were like this, you know, if I needed to stretch my back or, gosh, change my feminine hygiene, my sister next to me had me. You know, she's watching for the laws. I said, hey, I got to stand up, you know, and she's like, okay, and we're working, and she's watching the law, and she's like, okay, do it real quick. And that's the bonds that we made in there, you know, and I think, I know we didn't talk about the organization. I want to just bring it up really quick. Is that okay? The bonds that we made in there, we brought out here. So I'm part of Linus, Justice Impacted Women's Alliance. We're an organization made up of 700 currently and formerly incarcerated women, girls, and gender expansive individuals. Basically, if you did time in a Texas women's facility, we're advocating for you, and you're a part of us, and you're our sister, and we love you, and we get down for you, and we fight behind you. And it was that same community we had in there we brought out here.
So I know you stay very active. You were like in San Antonio yesterday for a march. This summer, what are the most important things that we should take action on?
I mean, it's summertime, and when you're walking to your car and you step in your car, and those few seconds before you turn it on or are able to roll a window down, that feeling is how it feels walking into a prison cell in Texas. And I think that's a huge priority for this summertime. So calls to action would be write your legislators and tell them why are we doing this? These folks are coming home. Why are we risking their lives? Why are we having them causing more mental illnesses, untreated medical? I mean, it's just so much, right? So calls to action would definitely be right, and let your legislators know. And then change begins with conversations just like this. Maybe you heard something today that you didn't know. So start a conversation with others in your community and share that information. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
What are so for people who have friends and family who are currently incarcerated, what are some of the most helpful and supportive things we can do?
Friends and family of incarcerated folks, letters, all of that, letters, visits, being able to answer the phone, all of that is huge. I know it's expensive, it can get expensive. Letters and mail are everything. Don't let your worrying about what to say or how to say. You don't have to go into this deep conversation about what got them to prison or any of that. You can talk about girl, this happened at work today, or hey, at church we were talking about this. It can just be very casual, but that connection, keeping that connection, keeps incarcerated people grounded. It's so easy to completely submerge yourself into a harmful lifestyle in there, and keeping connected with the outside really helps with that.
And as you've mentioned, when you get out, it's very difficult. I was really, I had a member several years ago who got out, and I didn't know that the whole ban the box. Do y'all know about ban the box? It's where businesses say we're not going to have the box that you have to check if you were formerly incarcerated. Sounds great, but then if you actually make it through to HR, you get a phone call saying, I'm sorry, we actually can't hire you. When you have a family member or a friend who gets out, what are some of the best things to do to support them?
Be patient. Let them kind of lead the conversation around prison. Some people get out and are like me and just need to spill it, and others aren't prepared for that. And in that same kind of line of patience, as I wasn't prepared. Like, I think my grandmother had this grand vision of, she had all these like a slideshow with pictures of everything I've missed for 10 years, and it was just completely overwhelming. And so I would say let them take the lead on that kind of stuff, but immediate needs need to be met. Shelter, clothing, food, oftentimes, even if you're gone only for 6 months, you've oftentimes lost all of those things. Employment. Guys, incarcerated people that come out of prison, they are the hardest workers I have ever been around. My friends work 2 and 3 jobs, and they excel at everything they do. We worked hard for free. So encourage, if you're a business owner, look into that. Encourage people in your community to hire formerly incarcerated people.
And for those of us who don't have friends or family who are incarcerated, other than activism, is there anything we can do?
So just, Reverend Joe, just like you do on social media, when you hear someone telling their story or talking about it, all of that, like, share, comment, so that other people will hear that. That's helpful. Supporting organizations like Lioness Justice Impacted Women's Alliance, and giving formerly incarcerated people a platform and a place to speak. This is all important and all part of the movement and part of change.
Okay. I'm going to have one more question, but I also want to let you know Marci Marie has very generously said that she will be out in the fellowship hall, so you can ask her your own questions. But I do want to end on, there's a lot of good stuff that has happened in your life, including, I think, some really surprising things, staying at the home of someone pretty famous, and in your personal life as well. Can you tell us about some of that?
Absolutely. I'll start with the most important. During my incarceration, I met my current wife, and I felt my ring. I almost thought it was gone when I felt that right now. We met in prison in 2017, and we were prison wives, but we are real wives now. We got officially married November 4th of last year. Thank you. Thank you. Watching her grow and our relationship grow has been truly the best thing that's ever happened to me. She's can I brag on her very quickly? She's a recovery peer support specialist, and she's in Denver at a conference, at her first conference, at her first recovery job, at her new job, and so that's why she's not here, but she was excited, and I know she'll be watching wherever the camera is. And then talking about my story has opened several doors, like meeting you. This has been a great honor. And also I got a little bit of attention from Rosie O'Donnell. So Rosie contacted me on TikTok, and we actually have a deal. what is it, a 4-season series deal that's still in the works about me, kind of my life, getting out of prison, healing with my family. How does that look with the kiddos? How does that look with my parents and my quirky grandmother, so that's really exciting, and a few other things we've got going on. We have a prison cooking show coming up, and that's going to be on Tubi, and so that's exciting. So many opportunities, speaking at legislations, speaking at the board, hearing from the people that I left behind that tell me, hey, I'm so proud of you, girl. That's everything. That's really, probably more important than, and definitely closer to my heart than anything. So, yeah.
Okay, I have one more. And first of all, I want to tell you, so a couple of years ago in December, we're doing kind of Christmassy services, and I was doing a service talking about the whole concept of dark and light and how our culture, it's white supremacist, and so we often equate dark with bad or dangerous. And you had done a video, I believe it was about after you were free going swimming in the dark, and about how when you're in prison, you're not allowed the privilege of darkness. Is there, other than family, is there some bit of freedom that has really been significant to you?
That was big. That was a big one. Being in a swimming pool. I'm a water girl. I love the water. And seeing the stars. We don't see the stars in prison. You're in stadium lighting all the time, so you don't see the stars. You're not. So that particular moment that you are describing, I was in a swimming pool. We had all the lights off. My grandmother's in the country, so there's no city lights around, and I'm in the water, and there's stars everywhere. That was the opposite of oppression. That was the opposite of incarceration. I had the opportunity to go on this beautiful yacht. I'm a gentleman trying to get some healing programming going for formerly incarcerated folks, and he took me out in the middle of the ocean. And I was sitting on the deck, and there was about 8 of us that had been locked up, and we were friends. And normally you can't get a quiet moment when we're all together, because we're all horsing around and teasing each other and laughing. But there was just a moment out there that we were all completely silent. We were in just complete awe to be out in the middle of that water. And there's lots of moments like that every day. Sometimes I open the front door and I'm like, girl, I'm opening this front door. It's not locked. I can do it whenever I want. I work hard. I work probably 65 or 70 hours a week because I'm so passionate about my work. And then the kiddos that I'm healing with require the whole rest of my time. I stay very busy, but just those moments where I can get up and go outside, man, taking your shoes off and your socks off and walking in the grass. What? I was on concrete for 10 years. I was not in grass. I had not touched grass for 10 years. What? Feeling that dirt, being in the ocean. I got to go to LA. My work has allowed me to travel all over the country, which has been phenomenal. Airplanes, all of that. Every day is and I know we're wrapping it up. My friend Denise Cherry, who I was incarcerated with on Lane Murray, is here with me. She was with me my whole 10, but she got incarcerated at 15. She did 33 years. Y'all, she's a champion, and she's out here fighting beside us as well. And just moments like that when I'm with these ladies that are freaking fighters and survivors, I have goosebumps. That's my family. That's my team. And those moments are, life is good. Life is amazing. And we have a lot to fight for and a lot of people to fight for. And we have a lot of work to do. But there's still those moments,
Yeah, and I will say, by following Marci Marie and her videos, it has the added benefit of things that we take for granted, reminding you how lucky that we are. And where all can they find it? TikTok, of course, but where else can they find you?
I'm all girl, I'm all over the place. My YouTube channel, it's smaller, but I interview a lot of people, and so if you're intrigued in stories like this and you want to hear other people's stories, that's a great place. But you can Google me, all of it. It's Marci Marie 114, and actually I brought some QR codes, so when we're at the back, if you'd like one, you're welcome to have one.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here. Yes. Oh,